Okay. Um, all right. So my name is Britton Lawrence. I know most of y'all, but I'm really excited to be here today talking about how to write well under a tight deadline. If you happen to be a part of our panel discussion on procrastination and burnout, we sort of talked about the root causes of procrastination. This is very different. We're just going to begin by addressing, like, okay, you're in this situation, whether it's from procrastination or just having so much on your plate. You're here, you've got a paper due or a million other assignments due, and there's a tight deadline. So what are some helpful tools, strategies, techniques for getting that done and still producing quality academic work? Okay, so we're going to begin with how to assess the situation realistically, how to look at everything you have to do and decide what you're doing. Second, we're going to talk about making a plan, and a plan that's realistic and feels attainable and makes you feel like empowered to do this because you can do this. And third, we're going to look at challenge, which is how to stick to the plan. Because making a plan is the easy part, sticking to it is where it comes in. And finally, we're going to talk about some helpful tools that you can install and procure now that will make your life easier in the future. And then last, I would love to hear from y'all about any tips, tricks, or tools that you have that you can all recommend. So we'll open it up to the floor. And also feel free to interrupt me with any questions or comments. This is not the kind of lecture where it needs to be silent in the room. All right, so where to begin? When you find yourself with a lot to write and little time to do it. So the first thing is to take a deep breath. It's really easy to jump into panic mode and start having fight or flight, and your nervous system gets activated. So taking a deep breath is a great place to start. Second is be mindful of how you're speaking to yourself. I'm just a firm believer in the fact that how we speak to ourselves informs the way that we interact with the world and approach our work. And so if you're constantly saying to yourself, I can't do this, I can't do this, you're going to start to believe that eventually. So even reorienting from I have to do this to like I get to do this is kind of a helpful reorientation that can just sort of adjust your attitude and make you feel more capable and might help you enjoy it a little more, especially if it's a paper that you don't want to write or not excited about. And then third, it's to make a list of all the assignments you have to complete. So that list should be just everything you need to complete and the time you have to complete it by. So a wise person once told me that if you're juggling a lot, which balls will bounce and which balls will break. So you're trying to determine, what can I push off? What can I ask for an extension on? What can I not do? And what do I absolutely have to do? So Eisenhower came up with this thing called the Eisenhower matrix. So what is important and urgent, those are the tasks that you should do first. What's important but not urgent are the tasks that you can schedule do later. Not important but urgent are the tasks that you can delegate. And not important and not urgent are the tasks that you can skip for now. So I feel like that's a really helpful framework to go off of, whether you prefer the kind of imagery of balls bouncing and breaking or the sort of categorization. Like both of those are really helpful in assessing the situation sort of calmly and logically and rationally instead of letting sort of like your emotions and your activated nervous system inform what you're capable of doing. So know when to ask for an extension. So I debated this with my friends and colleagues. When it's acceptable to ask for an extension, especially at Handler. The day that it's due is not the day to ask for an extension. Unless there's an emergency, then, go ahead and ask. And like, there's never any harm in asking for an extension, but ideally it's, 1 or 2 days before the paper is due is the best time to ask for an extension. Some professors, will say, I don't give extensions at all. So it's important to be mindful of that. Make sure you look at your syllabus. Some professors give, grace or like opportunities for like a mental health pass. So thinking strategically about when you're going to use those things is really important, especially if you know ahead of time, like these couple of weeks are going to be really busy for me, whether you have things to do with your family, your church, whatever's going on, like thinking ahead about when you're going to use those or if you're going to ask for an extension is really important. And then you want to look at your calendar and consider how much writing time you actually have. What are the tasks that you have to get done that you don't put on your calendar, and the ones that you do, and that'll help you moving forward. Then a tool that I've been using since high school actually is called estipaper.com. So so you put in how many pages you need to write and when you need to write that. So we'll say, yeah, I have a 5-page paper due by tomorrow at 3 p.m. So you've got 1 day, 2 hours, and 48 minutes. That means you got this, you just gotta concentrate. The average person would require 1 hour and 1 minute of uninterrupted composition time to finish, so they'd be done at 1:13 p.m. But nothing you do is uninterrupted, so it will take you closer to 2 hours and 49 minutes, so you'll be done around 1 p.m. And if you have to do research and reading, you better bump that up to 6 hours and 40 minutes, which means you'll be done at 6:52 p.m. And then it gives you sort of how much you should be completing every couple of minutes, how many sources you can use, editing time, how long it will take you to read through your paper, how many cups of coffee you should have, the calories you burn from typing, and how much you'll waste on social media. Time waste. So this is based on statistics. You can look at the sources here. But I found this to be really helpful just throughout my academic career because it's encouraging and empowering to see that it says like you got this, you need to concentrate. Sometimes it says like you've got this in the bag, and it accounts for time you'll be distracted because really easy to tell ourselves, I won't be distracted. Well, I'm gonna write straight, and you need to account for that. So this is a really helpful tool I found, and it's ideal for when you're writing a paper like very last minute because it doesn't really account for like sleeping, which you need to account for sleeping. That's kind of a through line through this presentation is that if you're not taking care of yourself through this process, you're not going to produce quality work. So sleeping, eating, taking vitamins, whatever you have to do to take care of your physical health is really important because that affects your mental health, your spiritual health, and just your brain function. All right. So that kind of leads into the next phase, which is making a plan. So you can do this and you can prove it to yourself by writing down your plan. Like it kind of gives you that confidence boost that like, I can do this, this is possible, and I'm going to like show myself by writing down my plan. So you need to account for all stages of the writing process. That's pre-writing, which is making sure you understand the assignment, brainstorming, considering what you already know about the topic. How much have you already thought about this? Have you talked to the professor about your ideas? That sort of thing. Then research, which is finding and evaluating your source, taking notes, backing up your arguments, and then drafting, which is just writing sentences and creating a thesis, just getting words down on And then revising and editing. Revising is more like, rearranging things, changing your content, perhaps even doing a little bit more research. Editing is more like correcting errors, going in and fixing grammar, things like that. So you need to account for all stages of the writing process because it's really easy to especially forget editing. That's really important. And if you don't consider that ahead of time, you're going to end up taking some hits in that regard. And you don't want to sacrifice that. But you also don't want to sacrifice pre-writing, like thinking about what you're doing at a time is really important. You don't want to just sit down to research or to draft and not have thought about what your idea is. Because then, going into research unprepared, you end up doing way more research than you even needed to if you had kind of thought about it ahead of time. So yeah, how much time will you need for each stage of the writing process? This sort of varies person by person, to be honest, because you have to consider how familiar you already are with the material. Have you already been considering topics and arguments? How fast are you at writing? Is it a reflection paper that you're writing about your experience and your opinion, and have you spent time in reflection before? Is this an argument paper, a research paper? You might need to set aside more time for that, and then, if you kind of are the type of person that edits as you go, maybe you don't need as much time at the end for editing. But it's sort of something you have to feel out and learn through trial and error and experience. But I feel like by now, in the graduate program, we sort of know ourselves. And if you feel like you don't, then start kind of observing that in yourself now. Like, how long did this take me to write this, 3-page paper? Consider, well, had I been really paying attention in class before? Did I feel like I was capable of writing this paper beforehand? Like, even kind of journaling about your writing process could be really helpful here. And again, remember, leave time for editing, even though it's really tempting to forget it and take hits there. Editing is just really important to turning in a polished paper, and you can catch things that are just so easy and simple to catch that you just don't want to sacrifice that. All right, so here's the tricky part, which is sticking to the plan. So if you make a plan, I'm going to write for 3 hours this day, 4 hours that day. I'm going to have this done by this due date. You've done all of that. You have it in your calendar, and the hard part is sticking to it, just in my experience. So for pre-writing, you want to make sure that you understand the assignment. As a writing tutor, I have worked with a lot of people who have brought in an assignment and they are just seem very confused about the assignment. And just don't be afraid to go talk to the professor about the assignment and do that early. I mean, do that when you get the syllabus. Even if you see an assignment on the syllabus that you are unsure about, talk to them beforehand and talk about concrete expectations that they have for this paper. Acknowledge your limits. So the pre-writing phase is all about brainstorming, considering what you want to do, what you want to argue. Think about what you already know well. Think about what you've already researched before. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Especially if you're under a tight deadline. This is not the time to do something that you have never done before. This is the time to do something that you have done well and maybe expand upon it, which is helpful for research anyways. And on which topics could you write well with the time you have? I know in my experience, it's really tempting to think, oh, if I had just started this 2 weeks before now, I could have written this paper. And it's like, well, you're not in that situation. This isn't 2 weeks before. And so you don't want to make a 2 weeks ago paper try to happen in a 3 days beforehand window, because that's just not gonna go well. So it's just kind of time to have what some people call a come to Jesus moment in the pre-writing phase, where you are just really, really honest with yourself about the situation that you're in. Not in a way that's like shaming yourself, but in a way that's just realistic. So in the research phase, you want to be aware of research rabbit trails. So that means, that's me. That means, you're researching and you see something and you're like, that's so fascinating. I really want to dig into that. And, you're reading, and all of a sudden you look up and it's been 5 hours and suddenly you've read like everything by Julian of Norwich and you're not even writing a paper. Not that that's happened to me ever, but now is not the time to begin learning Akkadian or reading the complete works of Augustine. It's just not the time. You want to be aware of boundaries. You want to kind of hold yourself to that. And if you find an interesting paper, you can save it, especially in Zotero, which we'll talk about momentarily, and come back to it. It doesn't mean you have to lose it. You can come back to it, just have to be aware of what you need to get done during this amount of time. Acknowledge your limits. Also, acknowledge your limits of kind of argumentation. Can you support the claims that you're trying to make? Is there perhaps a claim that is just as important and valuable, but not quite so not arrogant, but lofty, say. And finally, consider the quality of your sources. Quality sources beget quality sources. If you find a great source, you will find, in the bibliography, even better sources sometimes. So checking the quality of your sources is really important. I know I always go to Atla to begin, which is on Emory's database, and I'll look at the journal, like where is this journal published? Who published the paper? Where did they go to school? Like, is it a reputable academic institution? Or is it recent? Does it have, reviews, those sort of things? Considering that as you're researching, even though it might feel like a waste of time, in the long term, I think it's really helpful because it will connect you to even better sources. So in the drafting phase, you want to make an outline, but be prepared to change it. It could be really loose, just sort of the direction you're going, because if you're married to your outline, sometimes you can try to make things work that are just not working. So kind of discerning between, is this just not working, or do I need to do more research? Like, figuring out why something is causing you trouble is really important. And at the same time, you really want to avoid perfection paralysis. James Thurber, I don't know who that is, but I found it on the internet, said, don't get it right, just get it written. And I love that because I know I really struggle with, when I'm writing, I'll write a sentence, I'll read it back, like, oh, that was not good. And it can get you kind of trapped in this cycle of like not good enough, which also impacts your confidence as you're approaching a paper. And when you're under a tight deadline, that's like amplified because you're like, you have this voice in your head, oh my gosh, I only have this amount of time. Why am I not writing enough? Like, why is this not coming to me quicker? And the panic sets in and just kind of fuels that paralysis. So something I have to do is try to formulate my argument as if I'm just texting it to a close friend who knows nothing about theology. Like, how would I explain this to someone who has no idea what's going on? And I don't know, I find it as a really productive step because it kind of forces me to explain it. And when you teach something, you learn it as you're teaching it, I think. So yeah, those are some things that I try to do during drafting. just get words on the page, and you can go back and delete it later, but just start writing. Even if you're writing, I don't know what to write, but I'm thinking about maybe writing that, just writing first person, even if it's not a first person paper, can be really helpful. Just get your thoughts out. And then for the revising, editing phase, I think it's really helpful to read each paragraph individually and ask yourself, what does this paragraph do? What is its role? What is it doing for my argument? Is it cohesive? Is it a unit? How is it contributing? What is its place? And if it doesn't do something, maybe consider revising. And then for editing, and I cannot stress this enough, read the entire paper aloud to yourself. You will hear things that you won't read. You will hear overuse, unclear words, grammatical errors, and places where the paper just doesn't flow. Hearing it aloud is crucial. Anytime I'm working with someone in the writing center, and I mean, even hearing someone else read it aloud can be helpful sometimes, but I think particularly hearing your own voice, in the world, it's really, really helpful. And then finally, checking your citations. You don't want to plagiarize. Plagiarizing is, even if it's an accident, like you get into trouble, and being in a hurry does not excuse it. So make sure you're checking your citations, and like as you're reading aloud, sometimes you'll catch something that doesn't sound like me, and maybe you forgot to put quotations around it. So that's why it's also important to read the paper aloud. And finally, not finally, but sort of finally, tips for staying focused, because that is one of the most difficult parts about sticking to your plan, is staying focused. So I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the Pomodoro technique, but it is my best friend. I love the Pomodoro technique. There's a tomato in the Pomodoro because I think they have this like timer that looks like a tomato that kind of will do this timer system for you, which is really fun. So what you need to do is you decide on the task needs to be done. You set the timer to 25 minutes, and then you work on the task until the timer rings. You take a 5-minute break. You do that 4 times, and then you take a 15 to 30-minute break. And this is just incredible. This has changed my life. I just will put headphones in, listen to music that I will show you in a second, and doing this technique while writing is great, because if you don't give yourself breaks, like you will just burn out and your brain will feel fried, and you will, if you're me, you get really emotional and you start doubting yourself, and like keeping up morale is really important through this process. Like believing that you can do it is just as important as doing it. So yeah, the Pomodoro technique is a lifesaver. And during that break, I really suggest like going on a walk and like not thinking about what you were doing before at all. And a lot of times you re-enter the process with like a fresh idea or a fresh perspective. So you really benefit from this. And it's just more sustainable. Okay, other tips are music. Classical music is backed by research as being the best music to focus to. I also like lo-fi music. You can find it on YouTube and Spotify. Or I recently learned about binaural beats because my friend listens to them when she goes to sleep. They do something to some brain waves that it just it's really nice and like keeps you in the zone. There's also a specific YouTube video called ADHD focus music that go to in my life. So anything that like keeps you locked in and doesn't distract you, I think is really important. Second tip is paying attention to your body. That means you're going on walks, stretching, eating, drinking enough water. Like That is so essential. It's really easy to kind of get so in your head that you forget that you are a physical person. And that you are a body. And if you don't take care of your physical body, your brain will start to suffer and then your paper suffers. I know it's easier said than done when you're in a time crunch, but in the long term, it really will benefit your work and just your life. So especially drinking enough water, that just your head will start to react to dehydration, and it's just not pleasant. So remembering to drink enough water. With eating too, I think like a lot of times I'm just like I'm ordering takeout. I have to write this paper. I'm ordering takeout, even if I'm like, oh, I really shouldn't. I should probably cook. I just do it, and that's one of the balls that drops that will bounce. And me being fed is really important, and I don't have time to cook, so I'm just going to heat something up or order something in. And then putting yourself in a controlled environment. So making smart choices about who you're around when you're trying to work on a paper. I know like I have some friends that I can grind with, and I have some friends that I love them and I cannot be around them when I need to really focus and write a paper. Some friends that, help me focus, other friends that they're not the kind of friends that you can study with. It's not the best kind of friends, but being mindful of your environment. I also I work best in a clean environment because I love to distract myself by cleaning. I call it procrastinating, where I'm like, well, I have to clean my room. I can't write the paper until my room is clean. And so, yeah, cleaning beforehand. And then, you don't have that excuse. And then finally, asking for accountability from others. So friends, family, asking someone in your class that you really respect, will you ask me to send you what I have on my paper by this time? And then, you have the pressure of, oh, I said I would send my paper to this person that I really respect in my class. Something like that to kind of keep you accountable to the plan that you set for yourself. All right, and finally, we're going to talk about some tools for success. I'm going to pass out these handouts with the links and such. I hope that these tools change your life. Hopefully you already know some of them. So there are so many tools that can really save you hours of time. And setting yourself up for success with them now, help you better prepare if you're in a time crunch, you have a deadline approaching, you're like, just have a lot going on. You're like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I set this up. So the first one, and I almost did a workshop entirely on this, but the library is already doing one, so I couldn't do that. But Zotero, please get Zotero. Hear me, please get Zotero. It is incredible. It makes citations a breeze. I think citations are something that a lot of people put off until the end because you kind of have to have that bibliography with everything that you've already done. And that's kind of the time I think you're most anxious. You're like, oh gosh, I gotta get the paper in, I gotta do my citations. This just takes the stress out of it, takes the stress out of, oh my gosh, what if I plagiarized? Like Zotero has got your back. It also saves all of your resources from other classes, other papers in the library. And so if you're writing a paper and you're thinking, oh, what was that one source from that one class a couple semesters ago? You can go and just look, and it's right there. It's right there, and it's the best. And you can just cite it from there. It's wonderful.
I actually end up many times going back and having to correct a lot of those, like sometimes some pieces are missing. With online sources, it's not that great. I don't know if it's just me and
Yeah,
I
but
don't
you
know
feel
how
it,
to use
as
it.
long as like when you upload it though, like if you just check it and you just quickly like, okay, is this right? And then it's all set, like once you do
Mhm.
that, then you don't have to ever do it again. So it's really, that's what I just do, and I always like kind of like really check it quick, and then once I like fill in any gaps, we're
Right,
done.
you do have to check it the first time, but yeah, once you do that, once it's
Cause you can
set,
edit it, you
you're
can
done.
edit and put the changes. of
Yeah,
information,
but
so-
like I end up almost always like, I don't know, author is not correct or not complete, or date or issue or whatever.
No, that's a very good point.
I've heard a lot of people like being in love with Zotero and I'm not like it's okay,
Okay.
but
Talking that full on.
So here is what the Zotero, what's it called, extension looks like in the screenshot of this computer. In one of my papers, so you go to add or edit citation and it's just right there and you have your preferences, you can add this, you just, for bibliography, you just click add, and it just appears. Magic. But I won't go too much into Zotero because the PICS librarians are hosting a Zotero workshop on Tuesday, April 4th. The registration link is in the handout. I think that would be really helpful. I would probably also attend because I think there's so many features that I don't even know about. You can annotate in there, you can keep PDFs, like it will just store your entire life for you. So
I think you might know.
you think, yeah,
Saved me.
I mean, it truly has saved me hours. And so much of my brain power, because by the time you're done with a paper, like, I mean, you're just exhausted, like, I don't wanna do citations, like, I don't wanna plagiarize, but citations are really just not what I'm doing right now. I mean, then you can have more time for editing, but maybe try the workshop and they will.
By that time, I will be done with the last project that I have for the whole degree, so I'm like,
Good, good.
and I don't kidding you. Is it a Canva thing or?
I don't think so, I think it's just a happy good.
Yeah, I think it's just free.
I think you're right.
Maybe I'll go.
Yeah, it's free.
Yeah,
I remember getting it through.
yeah, I think it's just free period. for-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not using Zotero.
Right, because I have no idea how to cite things, so it's like,
And you do.
I just downline.
See, I don't should have made bookmark, so I'm always.
That thing is like,
Every professor does something different.
But
That's
this
what
one
the
you
problem
can-
with mine, yeah.
you can check the different boxes.
Really?
You got it, yeah. that's it.
So I'm now going to go to coffee with Zotero, see how we do.
I love hearing. Okay, the next thing is the Emory proxy resolver. And so this is great when you are researching. So if you've ever been denied access to a journal or a database, even though you had access to the source while on campus, anyone experienced this? No?
Yes.
I've experienced it a lot, and it's really frustrating because you're like, oh, this article looks perfect, and you can't get to it, and it even sometimes will say that Emory has access to it, and Emory is, a Research One institution, so you're like, Emory, you should have access to this. The Emory proxy resolver like fixes all of that. It's also sometimes called, there's something else called libkey that some people use. I prefer the Emory proxy resolver because it's just simpler, I think. But there's a link to both of those in the installation process on the worksheet. So yeah, the libraries at Emory use a proxy server to make sure that licensed digital resources are available to the Emory community. The library has made the Emory proxy resolver booklet, so you can automatically do all of the fancy proxy stuff. And just be authenticated as a user and gain access. So that sounds really complicated. Basically, it just gets you access to things that Emory has access to, that sometimes it says that you don't. So you just bookmark it on your browser, and then when you're on a source that says you don't have access, you click the proxy resolver bookmark, and it will just push you through. It's really nice, especially like when you're in a hurry and you're like, I'm trying to research, this article looks perfect. You're like, I can't get it with access. You just press it and it gets you right through. So yeah, your handout will have more information on that. Some more tools. Grammarly. I actually got Grammarly because of Jody. Jody was talking about Grammarly, and I was like, you know, maybe I should get Grammarly. They have a free version of Grammarly that has grammar checks, spelling, punctuation. But the premium plan, which starts at $12 a month, will check like your tone, will edit syntax. It is phenomenal.
Is it worth it?
I think yes. Now you're about to graduate, so maybe not.
Not literally for the next 2 weeks, I'm writing like crazy, so maybe.
But even the free version, like I use it now for emails, like everything I do
Yeah,
now
yeah,
is zip it
it's
through Grammarly, because you can put it on your phone so that it tracks even everything.
Yeah,
Because I'll basically type in an email.
I know free version is really helpful, but
But
wasn't
the
sure.
paid one's good. But you don't have to do a whole year, I don't think, so if you just did a couple months, maybe, I love it.
It's really great. It saves a lot of time. And then there's a Scribd, which I've never actually like used it beyond the free trial, but in a time crunch, it can be very nice because they have millions of ebooks. And so if you like can't get to the library, and you need access to this book, you can get the free trial, and it's probably on there. That comes in handy, really. In kind of a time crunch situation. And then Libby is a free app that connects to Emory Library that allows you to kind of borrow and check out books. I just thought I'd throw that on there because I really recommend it. There's some audiobooks on there too. It tends to be more like novels and kind of for fun books and not theology textbooks.
More fiction and fun than research.
Typically.
Self-care books.
Yes, but there could be something of use to you that's on there. I just recommend
Physical books or
ebooks. Yes, but you know, when you're in a time crunch, sometimes going to the library is not possible. So I would just throw those there.
Another tool that I live by is WordHippo.
Word.
Have you guys use WordHippo? I'm like, I can't do it without it. It's a thesaurus, but it gives you options and it contextualizes everything. So if you want to look up another word for hot, it'd be like temperature outside, temperature of food, temperature, like description of somebody. You know what I mean? Like it actually helps you like understand the context and what you're trying to write, and
Okay.
then give you tons of options.
does it give you like synonyms?
It gives you antonyms, synonyms, it gives you like help with keys. But WordHippo is on it, it has an app and I have it on the computer, but I have never written a paper without it, because I'll be like, okay, I've used the word, what can I say from important? I've used it way too many times. Right, so WordHippo just, I mean, it's just like tons of words,
Is it free?
it's free.
Okay, word hippo.
And it just like, and I love it because it just, again, it gives context, so it's not just like, you know what I mean, so it helps you understand what you're trying to say, so you can make sure you're saying the right.
Right, that's great.
So I'm taking notes just for quick time. So it's a free thesaurus,
Yeah, it's called
But-
WordHippo.
but like supercharged.
I mean, I just, again, it really helps when you're thinking about the context and what you're writing, because I've done before, I'm like, oh, that word's great, when you replace that one. And I'll professor be like, is that really what you wanted to say? I'm like, actually, no. So WordHippo helps keep you on the right path of what you're trying to communicate, so that's
great. Thank you
Are
for
this
sharing.
is it an extension?
what is that? How do you-
Like when you can put like Grammarly in your browser and you can work with.
I don't know.
I imagine
I put on the website, you can use another word for the opposite of meaning of rhymes with how to pronounce this word. Translate to English, translate to English, Scrabble,
It
crossword.
literally is.
Separate Indian rhymes with. Conjugated everything.
Yeah, I love that it provides like the connotation of a word too, that's really helpful.
I think it's running sermons.
Yeah.
They're all nice little rhyming couplet towards the end, really get everyone, ooh.
Yeah, thanks for saying that.
I have a couple things that I just learned that I can.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So just a couple questions for a reflection to think about after you write a paper under a super tight deadline, or perhaps last minute, is thinking, you know, how did this process feel for you? What did you learn about yourself and what might you do differently in the future? Those are just important things to think about in the aftermath of, you know, it's 11:59. Click submit, thinking about, you know, what can I do differently? How can I, like, if this is a cycle for you, you know, how can I break the cycle?
Every single time, the thing that I learn about myself is that I can get things done in shorter and shorter. I'm like, I didn't think I could do this, but that's not how it works. I did screw up one time though, in a class because I guess I got overconfident with doing things great last minute and I ended up writing a horrible paper and it didn't turn anything on time, so I was like, this is the last time.
But yeah, it's like thinking about that and like checking in with yourself and how you're feeling, I think is really important after doing something like that. So Jody already shared about work development. Does anyone else have a strategy or technique?
My favorite paper writing snack, cut up green apple, sip of peanut butter. And eat like fried egg. It's salty, it's clean. You don't have to worry about getting those fingers.
Very nice. It's great.
I'm also aromatherapy, peppermint all over me. I have like others too, but even my bubble right now, you can just smell peppermint out of it, because I just drop it and that's fine. So as I'm trying pages, but that helps me too.
Essential oils, yeah, gum helps a lot of people.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about coffee? Yes to coffee or no to coffee? I've heard mixed reviews.
It's a warm drink, you know, sometimes.
I agree with that. Sometimes
But
I want to drink will mentally
You
get
need
me
to
going.
have
but then
water
it's-
next to coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's something that I came to know like lately in the last month or so, because I used to always just drink coffee. And I really struggle drinking water, really. But I started putting like a glass of water next to coffee so that I can alternate, so I don't end
right.
up just drinking coffee and dehydrating
Right.
myself.
And I know some people have said like that drinking coffee actually makes you more anxious and sort of fuels that like and dehydrates you, so.
Yeah.
And
it's-
it's
Just a balance, I think, and figuring out what works for you.
And non-salty snacks, non-salty snacks.
Non-salty snack.
Non-salty snacks, because then that gives you more excuses to drink water, then you have to go to the bathroom, to drink more water. And then you're procrastinating and all the other stuff, so, yeah. But I do like the sweet, like the apples, or like I keep grapes.
gummy worms.
Yeah, my dentist doesn't like the gummies, but you know. And she knows everything.
Sure, sure, I just like making like beginning, sure, so it's like, no, I can't tell you because I don't.
One thing that I found grateful is I feel like in the later stage of living to bring out version and just have it as physical copy.
I love that.
And just see it, because it's very different from like scrolling versus like seeing it in paper. I feel like that helps just get a structure
Yes.
better and
Yeah.
I don't like to do it a lot just because of the trees. I don't like to use a lot of paper, but I found that really gives you a different perspective.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, yeah, printing out your paper and looking at it, yeah. Okay, that was-
Can I ask a quick question? I think, the Korean as a language, has to do with, the inductive method to write something. However, in my understanding, English is very related to, deductive, right? Deductive method. So introduction is very important in English learning. So, is there any opportunity to learn about, structure or logical, strategy to write introduction? So,
Yeah,
is there a seminar or something? Because, I'm so sorry, for example, fact, argument and conclusion like this, where, like this is supportive, sentences and examples like this. So, and then real searching, like,
right. Yeah, I don't know of a workshop for that right now, but that's a great idea, and I will pass that along to the writing center team.
yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you for suggesting them, yeah, that would be great.
I always skip the introduction. I write I write a bunch of small papers that are just, individual points for evidence. Then I write a conclusion that sums them all up, and then I write a conclusion the second time with a future tense. So this paper will say whatever.
That's good.
It's actually interesting that each paragraph is done with
So you're connecting the conclusion and the introduction, did I get that right?
Make sure that ensure that your thesis stays in.
Right. I've found out that it's a good thing that your conclusion is not just a summary of your paper. I don't know if that's the case for all types of paper, but I've heard a lot of people say like, it needs to add something to paper rather than summarize it, but I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, it could point to, sort of, greater implications of the argument that you presented. Or it could point to, further research needed in this area, or, or it could kind of be the final, like, cherry on top, like somewhat like little zinger points. Something like that.
But you wouldn't put like any substantial new, I don't know, point or argument, but I don't know.
Well, I just feel like the conclusion is where you tie it all together, where you know. But I think pointing to, further implications for your argument is really important, whether it's, if it's an argumentative paper, for the audience that you're writing to or about, or the field in general. You're talking about this contribution to the field could be, could benefit from more research in this area, or this contribution to the field will also affect this. Something like that could be helpful, just depending on the type of paper. But thank you all so much for coming.
Let's get donuts.
Donut will not help you. Donut will not pick me up.
I